What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to the Two Goat Show. We're your hosts, Miriah and Steph. Steph, happy Two Goat Thursday. Good to see you. We're going to get into all of the fun that you had at the game. But before we do that, how you doing?
I'm good. Happy to go Thursday. It's good to be back. Wasn't able to do a show with you last week, but we back.
We're back. Chat, what's up? Hope everybody's doing well. Don, first in the door. Appreciate you as always. Throwback, same. Appreciate you, sir. Listen to the good people, like and subscribe to both channels, Steph 49K and Faithfully in Vegas. We greatly appreciate everybody that comes through. Let's get into it. Like I said, Steph, you were at the game. Obviously, that's why we didn't do a show last week, because you were traveling to the game. How was it? Did you have fun?
It was fun. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I kind of milked this trip and I made it more of a, tourist little trip because I had never been in Nashville before. So, and I went with my girl. So we took the time to check out places, and she had been there a couple times, so she already liked it. And, but we got to check out some stuff. So yeah, it was fun. Their stadium, super old. And pretty small, actually. Like, it looks pretty small, but it is very central to like downtown area, and it's right across. There's like just a pedestrian bridge you got to cross from like downtown, and it's literally right there. So I do like that. Like, I thought it was, the fan experience was pretty cool, all things considered, and it was a pretty good time.
Good. I'm glad that you guys had fun. Glad you guys were enjoying the honky tonk, all that fun stuff down there. Getting your country bumpkin grind on, all that.
you know how it goes.
All right, let's kind of talk about that game a little bit. What kind of, were your overall thoughts? I'm sure that you watched the game since actually being there watching it. So kind of just like, what did you think about the game, just overall?
I think the game was pretty much what I expected, just based on it being similar to what I saw in camp from guys, right? Like, D Winters looking how he did, like that was what we saw in camp. Malik Mustafa as well had been making plays in camp. So, we saw that Pooney, all that translated to the field, which is a good sign, right? That like they're not just doing it in a practice. They're also, doing it in games, and you see those qualities jump out. So I honestly wasn't really surprised by much that I saw in the game. I think the only surprise was maybe like Kalia Davis. Like, I thought he had a better game than maybe like the camp, like than in camp that I had seen. Cause like, and not to say that he wasn't making plays in camp, but I just didn't, I didn't notice him too much in camp. But he definitely showed out in that preseason game. So bummer that he's going to be out for much of the season. But yeah, I think a lot of the younger players were really encouraging to see, and like I said, it was definitely a reflection of what camp was as well.
Yeah, that's Chris Forster in his press conference said the same about Pooney, that he's been consistent throughout camp, and that's what you saw in the game. Everything they asked him to do throughout camp and saw that he could do, and that he's been pretty much like thriving at in camp, are the same things they could carried over to the game. So I mean, that's exactly what we want to see from our young guys. And yeah, you talk about Double M, Mustafa, man,
he's gonna be a problem.
I mean, this is just his rookie season, very first preseason game, like, and we're already seeing so much of him throughout camp, throughout just one preseason game. Like, it's crazy. Like, man, just think of what this kid can turn into if this is already what he is. It's awesome to see. And then like we saw a lot. It seemed like our rookie class, like they were pretty much the ones that we saw holding their own throughout the game, right? Like Renardo Green was pretty solid throughout. Who else was there? I'm trying to think.
Tatum Bethune was pretty good too, and he was 7th round pick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, pretty encouraging through obviously just one preseason game, but the sample size we have, I'm pretty, I'm not mad at any of those young guys. That's for sure. What about things? Were there any negatives that you took? Any players that you think that you were expecting to see more out of them and they didn't show, or anything like that?
Again, like, just because of what I had seen in camp, I think my expectations were kind of set to a certain level based on what we'd seen. So, like, Ambry Thomas's performance, for example, wasn't a huge surprise to me before he got hurt, of course, just because like that's kind of where he was in camp. And also like just him playing as basically like
Mm-hmm.
third string, corner out there with most of the starters not playing. Yeah, that's kind of what we were seeing in camp as well. So yeah, that one didn't surprise me too much. But definitely someone who maybe underperformed. Um I'm trying to think who else kind of struggled. Um I mean, there weren't any that I think was like too egregious, which is to me a good sign. Ronnie Bell
Yeah.
like could have had a better game, I think, and it's kind of crazy cuz he was doing like those tough catches like not acrobatic but like high point go up and get it
Mm-hmm.
catches in camp, and he had an opportunity for one that just kind of went through his hands, and that's the one he felt kind of awkwardly on. So he could have definitely done himself, I think, more favors in that game. He has another shot coming up this weekend, but all in all, like I felt like no one was like super bad where I'm like, oh my god, like get this guy off my roster,
Yeah.
or get this guy off the roster. So I wasn't surprised by the two I mentioned.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at with it too. No, nothing that really stuck out to make me say, "Oh my god, like he needs to be the first person cut," when cuts come. Um, what did you think of the quarterbacks?
So I mean, for the quarterbacks, I kind of feel the same that I did in camp too. Like obviously Brandon Allen is more comfortable within the system and working within the structure of the system than I think Josh Dobbs is. For he's been in the system already, so that's not surprising. And like Dobbs, you saw what he could bring. Yeah, he could work out a structure and things like that. So he has a little bit of upside in that regard. But if I had to guess, like how coaches are looking at this competition between those two, I'd say Brandon Allen has the edge. He's not gonna do anything super impressive. I thought like people saying he was super sharp, and like I heard they were talking him up on the broadcast as well, and I'm like, no, come on. Like it's Brandon Allen. Like, and let's be honest, like he's a backup, so I don't know why we need to overhype him or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he has the higher floor. And from a coach's standpoint, I think coaches are gonna want to have that rather than maybe a higher upside kind of guy like Josh Dobbs, but he works out of the structure of the offense. I think they much rather have someone who's a little less impressive athletically, but, kind of plays within the structure of the offense and can finish a game for you. So, yeah, that's how I see it going. I think they're both like, decent choices at backup
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. And they could always keep Dobbs like on the practice squad if he doesn't
Right.
get picked up by anyone. I don't know, maybe the Vikings will want to pick him up after their injury to JJ McCarthy. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it right now.
Yeah. That's how I've kind of felt like when Allen was playing. I was like, okay, like if for like I hope it don't happen, but if something were to happen, like he could probably come in and just be steady enough to at least just get the ball to his playmakers and let them do all the work, right? Like a Jimmy Garoppolo type situation. Um and then like Dobbs comes in and like of course doesn't look as great, but it's more exciting, right? Like he has more, like
Yeah,
it's funner to
exactly.
watch Dobbs play, right? So like you
Yes.
saw kind of like watching the timeline through when Allen's playing, it seemed like that's where everybody was like kind of content with Allen, like, okay, and then when Dobbs came in, everybody's like, okay, yeah, like let's have Dobbs for quarterback too. Like forget, Allen being steady and what, he could possibly, keep us, in games and stuff. But Dobbs is more exciting for a couple plays. Forget all the other plays, It's just
Yeah,
funny,
exactly.
But that's kind of how I was feeling when I was watching it too. Like, dang, like, and even when we picked up Dobbs, I remember, us talking about it, and it was like, well, Dobbs brings that exciting, he's gonna make those off-schedule plays. He's gonna run and do crazy things, tried his hardest to get into the end zone. Like that's what we saw. So yeah, I wasn't like I'm very interested to see how it ends up shaking out. But like you said, if Dobbs doesn't make the roster, I don't think he'll make it like very long on the practice squad if he even makes it there at all. Because like you said, Vikings obviously a tough blow for them losing their rookie quarterback already. But good thing they got old Sammy D to take over. But as injuries start to mount up through the league, teams are always looking to grab a quarterback, and they all watched Dobbs go through 3-4 teams last season and get strung around and be able to pull games out of his hat and stuff. So like I wouldn't imagine that he'd be able to stay on the practice squad for too long. But hats off to him. Like that's pretty much if you think that Allen, not you specifically, but if they think that Allen's going to be the backup, like this is a rehearsal for Dobbs for the rest of the other 31 teams out there. So as with any of the players that are on the roster bubble, like they're pretty much showing the entire league what they can do when they're out there. So good luck to them all. If they don't make our team, hopefully they actually get picked up by somebody. Speaking of injuries, obviously we know by now that the 49ers canceled the joint practices with the Saints because they're too injured. And Kyle just didn't think it would be beneficial to pretty much just roll out all our backups and picking up guys off the couch to just be able to put out there to practice. What are your thoughts? Because we've heard in the past that Kyle talks up these joint practices, that he likes these more than the preseason games and how much more work they get out of these and yada, yada, yada. So what are your thoughts on us having to, already cancel things because our team is so injured and we've only made it through one preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bummer, right? Because I think, Kyle's right. There is greater value in being able to do these scrimmages with other teams, kind of get a better feel for where your team is at. But, at the same time, like, I completely support the decision of being cautious with who you do still have healthy, right? Because you don't want them getting hurt. Because sometimes, those practices could get a little more physical than the ones you would have internally. So I think that's fine. And also the travel of going out there and being out there for a couple extra days. I think rest for these guys is what's best. And I'm cool with the decision. I know it wasn't an easy one, but I think it was a necessary one. And I'm hoping, I know there's a lot of injuries, but I'm hoping a lot of them would be the kind that wouldn't keep them out if it were the regular season, right? And they're just being careful with guys. Like Christian McCaffrey, for example, it seems like that was the case with him. And maybe a couple others. So I'm fine with that. I think kind of like what Kyle said, the risk outweighed the reward for the joint practices. So it is what it is.
Yeah, the one that we talked about a little bit ago, you brought it up, but that Kalia Davis like injury like sucks so bad because and I had even asked you after when our show after you got out of training camp, like, have you seen anything from Kalia? And I remember you saying like, well, he hasn't stuck out, but that don't mean he's been bad either, and then to see him have a good game, and it's like this is what we know he can do, right? And it's just like injuries have stopped him so far from being that, and then we get the bombshell news right after, that he's going to be out and all this shit. And it's just like, man, such a tough break for these young guys that can't seem to, get it be able to get on the field to even show us what they're able to do. Trent Williams, reports came out that there has been no significant movement on the contract front with Trent Williams and the 49ers. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I thought the Trent Williams shit would be done by now because I just thought that's Kyle's guy, right? He's not gonna let this keep going and going and going. Like, but obviously it's not. Trent will, and all we hear about, it seems like, is Aiyuk every single day, all day long is Aiyuk contract, and Trent Williams is kind of like crickets, like finally we hadn't heard anything, and then they come out and just say, oh, there's no news, basically, so we still haven't heard anything. But what are your thoughts on this whole contract thing with Trent? And do you think Kyle's gonna have to step in and get his guy some money? Do you think there's a possibility they don't even pay Trent? Where are you at with this?
Well, I hope there's not a possibility that they wouldn't pay Trent. I mean, I think this one's a no-brainer to get done, which is why I think I was on the same boat as you, that I thought this was going to happen fairly quickly, kind of like it did with Christian McCaffrey. It's like, there's nothing to argue against. Like, so what are we doing? Just pay the man, right? And that's what they did with CMC. But for some strange reason, it just feels like Trent Williams is, flying under the radar here, both like I think from our standpoint a little bit, because we're so focused on like Brandon Aiyuk, but even like reporting wise and maybe on the 49ers side too, like he's kind of getting forgotten. Look, I mean, it seems like maybe there's something getting done. I mean, Kyle, when he's asked about it, says he's optimistic about it. Has he gotten to the point where, he's knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, can we like hurry this up and get this done already? I don't know about that. But if, he's saying he's optimistic, maybe it's just coach speak, but I'm going to continue to be optimistic as well. Now I'm starting to get people in my ear saying, oh God, do you think like since Trent Williams is like kind of hanging back, like is he thinking about retirement and all this stuff? And I wasn't even thinking that before. I was like, nah, like, but then like enough people have said it that I'm like, do I need to be worried about that? Like, should we be worried? Mm-hmm. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I hope that's just an overreaction by us fans. And I hope something gets done quickly. I mean, we only have like less than a month now before the start of the season, so it'd be great to get both of these guys back in the building so they could get ready for week 1 and the strain of the season.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's not like our O-line, what we saw from them, this first preseason, obviously not towards the end of the game, but those first couple, the first Jordan Mason, and Jordan Mason, man, that kid's a stud. But that first, starting opening drive, it's not like the O-line was terrible, right? But it's not like it was our O-line when Trent Williams is there. So it's like, I don't like, are they trying to see, like, do we have somebody good enough just in case that we're going to be able to throw in case we don't get this deal done? Like, yeah, I know. So it's just like, you have to pay him. What other, unless you're planning on trading Brandon Aiyuk for a O-line guy, for a left tackle. And I don't see any team that wants Aiyuk that's willing to give up their left tackle either, so it's just really crazy. Like, that's why I've been optimistic that they'll pay him, because what other option do you have? If he's not going to show up without getting paid, and you have nobody on your entire team that can fill in for him, like, you're going to have to pay him. But
I mean, I don't think it's a matter of like the 49ers not wanting to pay him. Like, I really don't think that would be the case. But I have no idea at the same time. I have no idea like what's taking so long, but if I had to guess, it's probably not them not wanting to pay him. So maybe some other things are sorting out. Maybe they're distracted by the Aiyuk thing. I don't know.
Or maybe they're waiting to see, like somebody said in the chat, waiting to get the Aiyuk deal done so they know where the money, the cap, the yada yada, and then, because Trent's deal will be easily done after that. Who knows? I don't know. Miss Debbie,
No one
what's up?
knows.
I see you. Appreciate you coming through. John B,
Debbie.
what up? Tanya, I see you. Appreciate everybody coming through. Let's move on right on over to Brandon Aiyuk. Pretty much, I told you this before we went live. It's like every day we wake up to breaking news. Here's the same news that you had yesterday. Breaking news. Here's the same news you had last week. Breaking news. Here's the same news from 2 weeks ago. And it's just like, I guess the thing that has changed though, and who knows, I mean, we can only go by what's reported out there, is that the 49ers have upped their offer to Brandon Aiyuk. And prior to that, we had heard that there had been nothing done since like May between the two, So if that's true and they have upped their offer, well, I mean, that is significant news there. Who knows how much? They could have offered it by a freaking dollar, we have no idea. But they could offer it by 50 cents and be able to still put out a report that they upped the offer. So, and then there's also on the other side where there's reports coming out that the 49ers and the Steelers have agreed to trade terms and packaging and whatever. And it's just pretty much now Brandon Aiyuk's deciding, does he want to stay with the 49ers and with their new upped offer, or does he want to go to the Steelers and the 49ers get whatever they get? Here's where I'm at with the whole Steelers thing, and this is where I've been at with the Steelers from day one. There's nothing they have that they're going to be willing to get, right? Like, they're not going to give us Watt. They're not going to, like, they have players that I'd want, but not that they're going to be willing to part with, right? So there's nobody else on that team that I would want that's going to help the 49ers win a Super Bowl this season after losing the talent like Brandon Aiyuk. Like, so what? They're going to give us draft picks? That ain't freaking helping us. Like, I want to fucking win a Super Bowl this season. Not, like, why are we getting rid of talent and then replacing it with nothing? Like our wide receivers that we have can't even fucking stay healthy. And we haven't even got to week 1 yet.
Well, I think that's exactly why the 49ers haven't been like moved to actually accept any offer from the Steelers. And, the report that, like they've agreed to a trade, or like they have terms in place, I don't think that's true. That's the Steelers talking and saying, we've made them an offer.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not accepting, cry more. So yeah, I don't think they're willing to give up a wide receiver. I think the only wide receiver that the 49ers would consider making a trade for in this case for player swap would be George Pickens. And I don't think the Steelers have offered George Pickens at any point, and so it's a no-go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the 49ers aren't in a position where they need to trade Brandon Aiyuk just to do it. Like, I mean, they don't have to honor it. And like you said, if it's not helping them for 2024, they don't have to do it, and they shouldn't do it. And I think that's where they're at. At the same time, like, it's just like, okay, if you're not going to trade him, like, just freaking pay him. But I do still feel like they're trying to call his bluff. And Brandon Aiyuk has not rushed to anything either, because I think he's trying to see how far the 49ers want to take this too. And I think like that was probably the plan all along from both sides, just kind of trying to sweat each other out and see who blinks first. It's really frustrating for us, but that's just the point that it's gotten to. And it can go a lot longer, unfortunately.
Like, this reminds me of the Ravens, and obviously not the extent of player, but like what they went through with Lamar Jackson. Like, yeah, you can seek trade partners, whatever. And then his people went out there and pretty much got other teams to work the contract for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and then went back and like, okay, here's your contract,
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what this means, but I guess Aiyuk hadn't been watching or out there on the field at practice for a few days. And then the last 2 days he has been. It was reported yesterday he was actually wearing a 49ers shirt at practice. I don't know. he was out there again today. They said watching practice pretty closely. They've been reporting that he's out there having conversations with the other receivers, with Kittle, things like that. I don't know. I just want it to be over. Like, I'm so sick and freaking tired of this shit.
I know. And
like every day I think like this could be the day. This is the day we're gonna get news.
So
and it's just like
I thought yesterday felt like a day, right? Like yesterday felt like a day. You had Jerry Rice the night before saying we're gonna find out tomorrow, and like nothing happened. So I'm adding Jerry to the list of people I don't trust for
that tweet with Jerry. I forgot about that. Like, what was the deal with that? He even tagged Brandon Aiyuk and everything.
It was weird. And then so like that was so the first he said that, and then we hear that Brandon Aiyuk was at practice, right? For the first time in like a week and wearing 49ers gear. So then like I was like, okay, maybe Jerry did know something. Like maybe we do have a deal that's about to happen, and crickets. So yeah, I'm frustrated as well. And like I keep checking, like I don't know, I'm every so often I'll check his Instagram and see if he's refollowed the 49ers. I'm just so impatient at this point.
Like, could you imagine? Like, this is why, contract negotiations get so crazy. Like, we're feeling this way and we have nothing to do with this. Nothing in this is going to affect our families, our future, our livelihood, nothing.
Yeah.
And we're stressed out and frustrated and all this shit, like so tired. Like, can you imagine how Aiyuk feels? Like, like this is his future, this is his family, this is his money. Like, can you imagine how like the player feels in this situation? Like, this is why you end up asking for a trade and all this shit and start feeling disrespected, because it's like come on, like. And of course they're putting it out there that the ball's in Aiyuk's court to decide, but when is it ever like in a player's like court to decide, when they have like, unless you have like some trade shit in your contract? Like, normally no guy on a rookie contract is there deciding what team he wants to get traded to and where he's going to go and all this shit. Like, so who knows where they're even really at with it. But Miss Debbie says, let me see, Jerry was just giving Brandon a bit of a push to do it, I think she says.
It could be. I mean, I don't know.
Because he's like, we're going to have some
news. Could Jerry make a call?
Like, so I'm thinking, well, maybe, they're wide receivers. Maybe they had talked. Who knows? Like he knows something. Because then even Jerry's son retweeted Jerry's tweet, like with eyes or with something. And it's just like,
that's just hella weird, right? Like, that's
out of the blue.
Jerry I understand, like, I think who was it? Kenny in the comments said, like, why would Jerry know anything about this? It's
why would he?
I mean, yes, but like, why would he say tomorrow? Like, why would he put a date on it? Like, if he had just said like, well, if he just said like, we're gonna find out what's gonna happen, like, okay, yeah, we will find out eventually.
Come on, Aiyuk.
But for him to say like tomorrow, like that was just weird. Why would you say that? I don't know. I'm annoyed.
Right, Chrissy? Hope you're doing well. Says, fix it, 49ers. Like, come on. We're sick of this shit. Not Trent Williams. George Kittle starts off his press conference by clowning the 49ers media and their shoe game. It's not up to par, Steph. He's tired of all those crusty ass shoes out there. Grant wearing the same old dirty Vans every day.
Hey, I'm with Kittle on this one. I'm just saying. I was peeping the style, from my spot at the bleachers. Seeing all the beat writers, and yeah, they need some work. They need some stylists or something.
That's hella funny that he starts out the press conference goes into it like this whole
he was so
thing.
Serious too.
And then did you see that video going around where Grant predicted what
Yes. Oh my God.
David Lombardi would go and buy, and David Lombardi gets home and makes a podcast, makes a stream, whatever, and it gets exactly what Grant predicted David Lombardi would go out and buy from the exact store and everything. Like,
Dead.
oh my God, it was
That
too freaking
that
good.
video was so funny. The way that like the person cut up the two clips, like
Yeah, that was hilarious. I'm like, no
that was
way.
like a movie or something, like something from like a sitcom. Like you can't make this stuff up.
I know, it was hilarious. Kenny says, Miriah, Steph, if you had to choose one, BA or Trent, who do you pick?
Come on. I mean, I love both players, right? But look, it's Trent Williams all day, every day. This is gonna be tough for you, Miriah. I want to know what you want to say here because Miriah is the Brandon Aiyuk like super fan, but we're talking about Trent Williams here. So what do you say?
Hello. If this was 5 years ago, I would pick Trent Williams, but this isn't. Trent is old. I'm picking BA every day. Pay BA. Hashtag pay BA. Put it out. What the fuck did you think I was going to say? Let's be real.
I thought this would truly be a toss up. I thought it would be a toss up. But like, you bring up a good point about the age thing. Who would you basically like if you were to give one money, like who do you think you would have for longer? It would probably be Aiyuk, just because Trent is I don't know when he's gonna retire. He did say he'd be willing to play till he's 40. I think that's true, but I mean Trent's still so good though. Like it doesn't even matter at this point. That's like Tom Brady playing well into his 40s and, still being able to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I don't know, like it's not my freaking money, so I really don't give a shit at the end of the day. They better pay them both.
Hashtag pay both.
But here's the thing, like it's not like Trent's asking for a new contract for 4 or 5 years, right? Like from all reports, he just wants a payday because there's no more guaranteed money like left on his contract. So really, like it's not like we need to extend him for any more time. Like we need to just kick off a few more dollars on the top of his pay and then extend Brandon Aiyuk for the actual contract. So like I think it's two completely different situations, but like I appreciate the question, Kenny. And yeah, I mean, if all things were evenly considered, it definitely would be like obviously left tackles are way harder to find, right, than a wide receiver.
That too.
And we know how important they are to the team. But this is my show, so I make the rules and all things aren't even, and so therefore I'm picking BA. There you have it. Ty says, what if Kenny really meant Trent Taylor? Ty,
yeah,
don't get smacked, okay? What do you think of the return game? Because, supposedly this is what you've been wanting to feed me, is that Trent Taylor going to make the freaking roster because he's the only one that can have a return game. But during this preseason game, it looked like Trent Taylor was running to a brick wall. So
I hate to inform you, Miriah, that he's even with that, I think he's still going to make the roster. Like it, and that's crazy, right? Yeah, that deserves some boos because I mean, sadly, he is their most reliable, like, return guy. And I only say, like, from the most important part of returning, like, catching it, right? That's a huge part of it. I'd say Ricky Pearsall is a close second, but we just haven't seen enough of Ricky Pearsall. Like, he just hasn't practiced enough to, like, confidently say, okay, we can let go of Trent because Ricky has shown us enough on this. Like, we haven't seen enough from Ricky to just say like buy Trent Taylor, right? So Trent Taylor's making this roster. I'm so sorry to inform you all.
He's not.
I think he will. I think he will.
I bet you $5.
Okay. I'll take that bet.
Okay. You guys heard it. Steph's gonna owe me $5 soon.
I would be happy to be wrong. Like, I wouldn't even be mad.
I hope you are wrong. Let me ask you this. So with all these, we always hear, and I don't really know exactly like what goes into this term, Super Bowl hangover, right? But we always hear this, right? And we always hear it seems that the losing team has more of a Super Bowl hangover than the winning team, is what they say.
Mm-hmm.
So far, and I just said, I don't know exactly what goes into the term Super Bowl hangover when people use that. Does it mean they just come into the next season and suck? Does it mean they have a black cloud around them, everything goes wrong? Is it just a combination of a bunch of shit? All I know is that I keep seeing people throw out there, are the 49ers on the verge of a Super Bowl hangover because we're already at this point. We can't even practice because we have 30 players hurt. We have two guys, important guys of the offense, contract disputes, holding out, all this shit. What are your thoughts on the whole Super Bowl hangover term, and if that's what we're about to go through here?
All right. Well, I think it's something that's real, but I also think it's something that's way overblown. And I think that people just look for anything, any clue that would suggest a Super Bowl hangover, even though, like, a lot of teams probably deal with that on a regular off season. Like, a lot of teams deal with injuries like in the off season before the season starts. But I guess like it's more of a on top of everything else, like that could make it feel like it's difficult to climb that mountain again. So to me, it's more of like a mental thing. It's a mental hurdle more than anything else. But I don't think the 49ers are really there. Like I think it's like low hanging fruit, honestly, for people to just say. It's kind of like a buzzword. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like superstitious, right? Like the Madden curse, Super Bowl
Yeah.
hangover, like um so I'd like to think that the 49ers aren't under that. But what
Yeah.
about you? Like, how are you feeling about the vibes? Because there's been people talking about the vibes and like fan perception of vibes. I think is way different than the guys in the locker room. Like, do you think the guys in the locker room have a different vibe, or like, do you get a different vibe from the players from what we've seen?
Well, here's the thing is that we know the fan base is going through it, right? We just talked about how we're
Yeah,
all stressed, we're all this,
exactly.
all whatever with
We're
this Brandon Aiyuk
projecting.
stuff. Yeah. Like, so obviously the vibes in the fan base seem to be at a low.
Yes, exactly.
But I remember the first show we did, the second day of training camp or first day, whatever, second day of training camp it was. And that's one of the first questions I asked you. What were the vibes like out there? And you said the vibes were normal. They seemed just how they were, just how they've been. Same as last year. Vibes were good. So, I mean, when we only have so much what we can see of the players, right? So, I mean, I can only go by what I see them when they're up there at the podium. Everything seems normal.
Yeah, exactly.
From the videos and stuff that I've seen, they're all out there dancing before, doing their stretches, they're all talking, I can't pull up a tape from, a clip from training camp this season and a clip from training camp last season and say, oh, the vibes look better in this video. I think that was last season. Like, so, I mean, yeah, it sucks obviously that we're already having all these injuries. Hopefully the guys, obviously not the long-term ones, but the guys that are all nicked and banged up a little, hopefully they get over it now and they're good for the rest of the season. That's all that we can hope. They're getting their injuries out of the way. But
Yeah.
it makes it tough when you're playing all the way until February, right? And then you have to all of a sudden fix your body, rehab, rest. all this, and then you're already getting into football activities, you're back into camp, all this shit. So it's like, I think that's, if I had to think of the term Super Bowl hangover, like that's where all that comes from, because you're the two teams with the least amount of rest now, the teams that had the players playing the longest, so their bodies are beat up, and you don't have that full recovering time as the other teams do. Like, we had teams that were so shit, they were resting their starters the last 2-3 games of the freaking season. So their guys shouldn't be as beat up, but I mean, injuries happen too, we just like talked about the Vikings already lost their rookie quarterback, like,
yeah.
So I mean, are our injuries worse than the rest of the league's injuries? I really don't know. Like, I haven't looked, to count the number of injuries that each team has compared to where the 49ers are currently at, but it don't seem like Kansas City is having these problems. I mean, they couldn't keep their team away from the cops during the offseason, and they seem to be fine out on the field.
I know they always seem unaffected by anything that happens to them. So that kind of like begs the question for me. What would we constitute as a Super Bowl hangover for this team this season? Is it okay? Like, for example, 2020, terrible season. Like, I think that'd be fair to be like, wow, Super Bowl hangover year. That one's easy.
Yeah.
If 49ers like don't win a Super Bowl this year, like, are we gonna say it's a Super Bowl hangover? Like, let's just say make it to the Super Bowl, but they lose again. Is that Super Bowl hangover? I'd say no. It'd be disappointment, but I'd say no, it's not a Super Bowl hangover. So where are we drawing that line to say like Super Bowl hangover? Is it more like injury related? Again, like is it the vibes? Yeah, if they miss the playoffs, like I think that'd be fair, right? But if they made the playoffs and like lost, would you call that a Super Bowl hangover?
I mean, I guess it kind of all depends. Like, do they make the playoffs and lose because they're just ass? Do they make the playoffs and lose because Brock Purdy throws 3 interceptions? Or do they make the playoffs and lose because 40 of our starters are hurt? Like, like it all depends. I'm not gonna, if they get into the Super Bowl and completely play like ass, I'm not gonna turn around and say, oh, blame it on a Super Bowl hangover, when clearly you're just looking for an excuse, right? Like, now if our team's so beat up that we have 5 starters struggling to hang on to make it to the freaking play-in of the freaking playoffs, like, okay, yeah, there might be some hangover, but at the same time, then are you just, like I said, looking for an excuse, looking for anything to then blame it on? Like, no matter if we just have a shitty season that ain't up to our standards, oh, it was a Super Bowl hangover, no big deal. Like,
yeah, because I'm seeing even in the comments, there's like different. It's a gray area, right? Like, there's different definitions, or like what we feel would be would count as a Super Bowl hangover. But I think ultimately, the vibes never lie. The vibes will tell all.
So tell me this, from the first day that you were at camp till your last day at camp, how were the vibes from day 1 to the last day? Did they change? Were they the same solid straight through? Were there up and down days? How would you rate that?
There were definitely a couple days that were like low energy, and I would say lower vibe. Like, there was one day in particular that was super weird, and it was like the day after, I think it was when Pretty Ricky said like there was a done deal with this deal. The first time he said it, and that day of practice was weird. But then, and I think we might have talked about it. And again, though, like, I don't know if that's just me and fans projecting what we're feeling about that, and thinking, God, this is so weird. And we're kind of perceiving like the energy that we're kind of feeling ourselves. I don't know. Like, it was a weird day, though. That one was especially. But I guess, like, compared to last year, it's just a different kind of vibe, I would say. Like, last year, you still had like the Sam Darnold, Trey Lance off season, and like Brock being there. Like, that was kind of weird too.
Exactly.
But yeah. I think like from our standpoint, that made it a little more entertaining to watch. Like we were kind of distracted by other things. Whereas this season, like we have no questions about the quarterback situation. And that's almost like, I don't know, I don't want to say boring, but like you kind of know what to expect. And
Mm.
Brandon Aiyuk isn't there, so you're not having like as many highlight reel plays on offense as you probably would if he would be there. And you're not having these like crazy, like intense one-on-one battles between, Aiyuk and Lenore, for example, which was a thing like the previous camp. You're not seeing like the battles against Nick Bosa and Trent Williams, which always, excites fans. So I think all of that, like to fans, like plays a role in what we perceive as like vibes and things like that. But I think for the players, it's not much different.
Yeah. Guess all we can do is keep watching and keep waiting, see what happens. Corey brings up a good question here. Says, Steph, I know you don't like hypotheticals, but we've exhausted BA and other stories. Can we talk about what a Purdy implosion would mean, since this has happened multiple times in NFL history? So I'm guessing Corey is talking about, we go into this season and the Brock Purdy that we've seen the last year and a half-ish is not the Brock Purdy that we see this season. So what if he, looks like total ass? Like he's out there throwing interceptions and is not who we thought Brock Purdy was going to be. What happens?
I mean, what would that mean? It means the 49ers are screwed. I mean, that's what it means. I mean, I feel like they've put a lot into Brock and not building around him, because like a lot of it was already built, but like I think the idea that the offense is ready to maybe take another step, or that Brock is ready to take another step, like I think for fans and maybe even for the team coaches, all that, we're kind of hoping that he can do that to be able to get over this hump, right? Like if Brock Purdy grows as a quarterback, it raises the ceiling of this offense and this entire team. So if he comes out and he looks like shit, I mean, that's a Super Bowl hangover right there. Like say goodbye to any chance at winning the Super Bowl. And obviously that would have bigger implications as far as, other things. Like, what do you do after that? You can't feel comfortable signing him to an extension after that if that were to happen. But I feel good though. Like I feel good about Brock more so than like any other quarterback that this team has had. So I think he is going to be the exception.
Yeah, just because he's been so steady and so consistent through it all, like he's just been, going into games, and I've said this on my show so many times, like I would be sick to my fucking stomach watching Jimmy Garoppolo play football. Like sick, like feeling like I was going to throw up. I didn't know if I was going to throw up, shit, who knows? I was just sick to my stomach because every time he would drop back and his arm barely made it this far, and I'm like, oh, because you just know it's going to be a freaking interception. Like 95% chance the other team's going to catch it, like it shouldn't be that way. But with Brock, like, oh my God, it's just like a breath of fresh air watching him play football. Like I can be so relaxed and so calm, and just like I just have faith or belief that he's going to take care of the football, that he's going to get in there and do what he needs to do, that he's smart enough to know where Kyle wants him to go with the ball. And the other guys that we've had previously, I don't think they were as smart. They were missing some screws up there. So, Jimmy had freaking rocks banging around in his head. I don't know, but like the guy was not smart at all. So like complete opposite, I think, with Purdy. Like I would I mean, like Corey said, though, we've seen it happen in the past, right? Like,
yeah, no,
guys go in and have a superstar rookie season, and then all of a sudden they're ass the rest of their career, and it's just kind of like, what the hell happened?
Like, don't you think we're past that point though? Like with him,
I
like,
do.
because I thought like that kind of point where we're kind of wondering if this was legit or not was last off season, right? Especially him especially Purdy coming off of his surgery and all that. So he passed that test, so I just can't see it being any, like, I don't see him running into any problems now because the NFL like already knows what he is. They've game planned against him last offseason based on what they had seen from him the previous year. Like, what I think, like, he's past that hurdle.
Yeah, I agree. Steve says if BA gone, Purdy could have a 25-15 year, then his pay is $45 million a year. I'm really wondering, like what kind of season Purdy has to have to, like, if he goes out there and balls out, like, let's say, I don't even know like numbers to even throw out there, but like, let's say top 5 in at least all quarterback numbers, right? Or he goes out there and isn't necessarily like shit, like Corey was saying, but is maybe like Jimmy Garoppolo level, like 10 to 20 or 15 to 25 ish, right? Like, what do you think that hella changes the difference in what he's going to get paid? Or do you think it's just the quarterback market's the quarterback market and he's going to be up there?
15, 20 what? Like, what was the
like range in quarterbacks, like in the league,
oh,
like
like
he's
ranking, his ranking?
like his numbers and everything.
I mean,
or do you think they're just
I
going to
think
pay him like regardless?
I think it would definitely change it a bit. I think if you're top 10, top 15, like, you're gonna probably, like, you have the potential to reset the market just because that's how crazy the quarterback market has been. Like, we look at Jared Goff's deal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we've seen shit quarterbacks get paid and haven't even done a quarter of what Purdy's done already in this short time, So that's what I'm wondering. Like, if he just goes out there and has let's say a season a little bit worse than what he had, last year. So not like too shitty, but not like the greatest either, he goes out there and balls. Like, is he just going to get paid regardless?
Yeah, I think if because we've talked about this, right? Like, there's a scenario in which Brock Purdy could look better as a quarterback, like, the whole package of being a quarterback, and statistically not have a year as good as he did last season.
Mm-hmm.
Last season was an incredible season statistically. So I think, I mean, it would be hard to replicate that, I think. So if he has a worst year statistically, but he looks good, like, I would still say he's gonna be up there.
No, Corey, nobody was saying Goff was shit. She was just saying Goff got paid a lot of money, and then I was saying I wasn't saying him, he was shit. I was saying other quarterbacks that are shit have gotten paid. So I wasn't saying Goff was shit. It just came right after her bringing up Goff. But no, like, there's been so many shit. Like, I always think of like Sam Bradford, whatever, that quarterback. Like, he got paid so much money from multiple teams and was shit the entire time. Like, I couldn't understand why teams like kept paying him, and it's just like we've seen, and it's because, like, and now in today's age, like, a quarterback doesn't have to even be necessarily like Mahomes, Josh Allen level, but they come in and they're like, mid-level, but since the quarterback market is what it is, they get paid crazy ass money, it's just like. And it's so weird with quarterbacks compared to everybody else too. Like, that's why it's so hard to even try to gauge, like.
Yeah.
Like, I'm at the point where I just think he's going to get paid regardless. Like, he's going to be paid at the top of the market. It doesn't matter.
Yes, because And I think what it is because basically, if any team is willing to give you an extension, it means you are good enough. You know, like teams are telling you you're good enough to be kept, and they want to keep you. So in order to do that, like they agree to that market price. So that's why I think you're seeing like every quarterback, even the top 15 and maybe like on the lower end of the top 15, like being at the top of the market when they get paid, because it's like there is no difference, I think, in what teams are agreeing to pay. I don't know how to explain it, but like, you know, I definitely think it's different than, because there's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the league, and only a fraction of those get extensions or on
Right.
extensions. So I think that definitely weeds out a lot of the other quarterbacks. But because if you're not good enough to get an extension, you're just going to get signed by another team.
Right. Corey brings up Daniel Jones, and that's a perfect example. Like he's not like, the 30th worst quarterback in the league, but he's surely not the top, 5-10 in the league either. But he got paid like he was because that's where the quarterback market was. So it's like, I don't know, this whole like market thing, like the same that we're going through with BA, but for wide receivers, like we watched the quarterback market explode. I mean, the wide receiver market explode. Well, then you're going to want more money because that's what the market's at, right? Like, I don't blame them for that. Like, but it's just crazy the way contracts work in the NFL, I guess.
Yeah, quarterbacks are in a tier of their own.
Yep. All right, Steph, you have anything else you want to talk about, say, tell the good people about, anything before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I'm excited for this weekend's game. I'm hoping, the guys that did well, guys that I'm excited about, can build on their performance. And, honestly, I hope some of the guys that were like borderline, like there were a few guys who were showed some good things and then like also kind of showed some bad things. Like I hope they can improve on their performance. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to be looking at. I'm looking at wide receivers. I want to see what happens with the tight ends, like mostly like Braden Willis and Jake Tungus is kind of what I'm looking at for that. And then what else? Like the defensive line, because of Kalia Davis, and they signed another guy there. I'm looking to see how that kind of shakes out. Who's gonna stand out, and offensive line, like the depth, of course. So yeah, it should be a good one.
Steve-O asked, did you get to meet Bosa?
Did I meet Bosa? No, I have not. I'm honestly scared to at this point. He might actually tackle me.
He might threaten
which I
you.
would not survive.
Don't you ever make another video again. Or else.
God.
Yeah, I guess that's all. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow at 5. Tomorrow at 5 Pacific time, with TL to do this all again. We'll have some giveaways going, all the fun stuff, the vibes over here. So make sure if you're not subscribed that you get subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed to Steph 49K and Faithfully in Vegas. Both channels, like, subscribe. We greatly appreciate all of you. You guys had the chat going as always. Great questions. Yeah, you guys are all appreciated. I hope you guys have amazing rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Please stay safe out there. It's crazy. If you're going to the game, have a wonderful time. And yeah, we'll be back. Me and Steph, the two goats. We're back next Thursday, same time, same place. Till then, we're out of here. Peace.